Hi guys! So as planner people, we all have our planner preferences, right? The things that you absolutely have to have in a planner and the things that you just can't stand. So I thought that it would be fun to do a video where I go through my top 10 planner deal breakers, the things that I can't live without and the things that I can't live with in planners. So the first one will probably not come as a surprise to you if you've watched my other videos. Shared weekends. I cannot abide by shared weekends. This is what I mean. So this is a Leuchtturm week on 2 pages horizontal planner, which I really like, except for this. Ta-da! This is the offending element here. Let's see if I can get that close enough. You see how every day has its space. They're all beautiful and wide and happy. And then you get to Saturday and Sunday, and they're squished into a single space. So I think a lot of you will be able to relate because this is quite a big topic in the planner community. Do you like the shared weekend or not? And for me, I've actually not had a huge amount of experience with the shared weekend because I think I realized relatively quickly that I didn't like it. For a long time, as you may know, I used this Hebrew planner, which is kind of funny because it didn't give you any room to write on Saturday. And because we see Saturday is the Jewish Sabbath, you're not supposed to be writing anything. So they're like, you don't need to write anything on Saturday. And, you know, there was just like kind of a tiny little line that said like, this is Saturday, and sort of gave you the times that the Sabbath goes in and out, and that's it. And I had that for years. And because I kept Shabbat the Sabbath, it wasn't really a problem for me. So I'm kind of aware of the concept of the shared weekend for a long time in a relatively unusual way. Then I had a day per page, and it wasn't a problem there. And then I switched to a week on 2 pages Moleskine, which follows the same policy as Leuchtturm in that they give you a shared weekend. And I had that for about 2 months at the beginning of 2015, and I found it extremely irksome. And I think the reason is probably the same reason as any of the rest of you that don't like a shared weekend will have. It's because I feel like for most people, no matter what you do, whether you work on the weekends or not, you might have things to plan on the weekends. So like, for example, for me, I don't work on Saturdays because of the Sabbath, but for me, Sunday's a normal working day. I'm at home, but I'm still working and I need to schedule things, and I like to, you know, have as much space to schedule that as for any other day. Like Sunday to me is really no different than Monday. Especially because when I'm teaching, I never teach on a Monday. My teaching week always starts on a Tuesday. So there's absolutely no difference between Sunday and Monday. And just having half the space is really frustrating to me. Likewise, I think, you know, for a lot of people, if you're not working, you still have things to go to. You might be meeting people, you might be doing things, you might be going shopping, you might have more stuff to do when you're not at work. So if anything, it would make sense to have more space for the weekends. Not that I'm advocating that, but, you know, the point is just like, it's unfair. Why should they only get half the space? So that's my anti-shared weekends rant. And I know that it works for some people, and if it works for you, then great. I don't mean to knock it. It's just that I find it really frustrating. So my hatred of the shared weekend is so passionate that this has become a deal breaker for me, as in I will no longer buy a planner if it has a shared weekend. That's one of the first things I look for if it's a weekly planner. So that was deal breaker number 1, the shared weekend. If we just compare it, I'm going to be using this Hobonichi Cousin as a kind of control planner, because this is like my dream planner. It has everything exactly how I would design it if I were designing a planner. So this is what I like. So you have 2 choices when you're designing a weekly layout, right? A week on 2 pages. Because you have 7 days, you can either give the 5 weekdays the same amount of space and then squish the weekend, or you can have each day getting the same amount of space and then have a notes column or something like that. And that's what the Hobonichi does. And I just like this much better because every day is equal. no day is discriminated against. And then you've got this nice extra bit of space to make notes for things that you have to do sometime during the week or whatever else you want to use it for. So thank you, Hobonichi, for being magnificent. On to the next one. Deal breaker number 2 is a short time span. So sort of hand in hand with liking to have, sort of equal space for all the days, I like to have the opportunity to schedule things any time of the day. So what I mean by a short time span is if you have an hourly layout, and this is a day per page Moleskine. So this is an example of what I think of as a short time span. It could be even shorter. I have never used a planner that had a much shorter time span. This is a 12-hour time span from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. And I think in a lot of cases that's fine. But again, it depends on what you're doing. So for example, I was taking a Russian class for up until this autumn. I was taking it for 2 years. And before that, I took other language classes. And they're always evening classes that finish at 9. So I couldn't put that in the schedule. I could put the beginning in, but I couldn't put the end in. And I certainly couldn't schedule anything for after I came home because Moleskine is like, I'm sorry, you're not meant to be doing anything after 8 p.m. There are a couple of blank lines at the bottom that are actually supposed to be for the weather and temperature, which you can obviously ignore. It has these little icons at the bottom. So I could, sometimes write things in at the bottom, but I like to be able to say it starts at 7, it finishes at 9. And then, I'll be home at 10. And then if I have to do anything else, then occasionally there were things that I wanted to be able to include on the timeline. I never have the opposite problem because I hate getting up early and I do my best to avoid getting up before 8. So if I had to do anything before 8, there were some times when I was teaching at 9. So I had to get up before 8, but I didn't put anything in the schedule because it's not like I have any appointments that early. But equally, if you are a morning person and say you get up at 5 or 6, Moleskine doesn't believe that your day should start until 8. So I just find that a bit frustrating. And I really only realized this after I started using the Hobonichi. Again, I'm sorry, I'm going to be comparing things to the Hobonichi a lot because the Hobonichi has the best timeline that I've ever seen. And since I saw it, I've been looking at all of my other hourly planners that I've had since then and other hourly planners that are on the market to see if anything can beat the Hobonichi. And they can't, I don't think. So it starts at 6 a.m. and you've actually got one box before this. You have your top 3, you're a checklist of 3 things at the top, and then you have a blank space, and then you have your 6 a.m. box. So you could actually write something in for 5 if you wanted to. But it goes from 6 a.m. until midnight. And I just think that's fantastic because since I've had this, I've never had a problem not being able to schedule something, even, kind of late evening classes, or say you went to a film and it finished at 10 or 11 and you wanted to be able to put that in, which I like to do, you can. So ever since that revelation, this has become another deal breaker. And now I would never again go back to using as my main planner a planner that has a shorter time span than that, because I would just be comparing it to the really big time span that you get on the Hobonichi. Obviously, this is not a cut and dried thing because there could be a lot of things that you really like about another planner that has a shorter time span and it's kind of worth it. But for me, I definitely now would classify that as another deal breaker. Okay, so moving on, deal breaker number 3. Laminated covers. So for some reason, I've just never liked the look of laminated plastic covers. I'm not sure why, it's just an aesthetic thing. I think it is related to the fact that, as I've talked about before, I like planners that are bound like books and that remind me of books. So I kind of with this, I can sort of imagine this feels like a hardback book to me. And I really like the idea that I'm carrying around a book with me, because I like books. But if something has a laminated cover, it's you don't get books with laminated covers unless they're training manuals or something. And so I think it feels kind of a bit, somehow a bit homemade, but homemade in a bad way. Lots of homemade things are nice. I like fabric covers. Maybe it's because I can laminate things myself. And so I have a laminator. And so I associated laminated covers with things that I've made, like teaching aids and things that it just somehow doesn't feel like permanent and beautiful to me. So that was my first issue with laminated covers. I've just never liked the look of them. Having said that, I like this. I sort of eventually got a happy planner and I really like it despite the laminated cover. But the one thing that I would change about it is I wish that it had a hardback cover like the Inkwell Press. I just think that that would make it look so much more amazing. So that's my first issue. And then my second issue is the plastic. So I think long felt a bit guilty about buying things made out of plastic, especially if they're things that won't last for a really, really long time. If it's something that you're going to be able to use, for years and years, then it's not quite as bad. But if it's something like this where a new one comes out every year and you have to get a new cover and you can't even recycle this, and that's kind of always bothered me a bit. But just recently, I've been reading, I sort of got into this whole like zero waste, not using plastic concept, which was something new to me. And I mean, zero waste on the one hand and not using plastic as a separate sort of category within that. And so I've decided to stop using plastic, which means that like I will definitely not be buying anything else with a plastic cover. So I'm not sure what to do with the Happy Planner after this one runs out, because I really like it. And at the moment I'm thinking of buying the extension packs, because the extension packs just have 6 months worth of undated pages with date stickers. I'll talk about that in a minute. But they don't have the cover or the plastic discs. So yeah, that's my third deal breaker, is laminated covers, or like in fact plastic in the materials. So moving on to number 4, as I just mentioned briefly, undated inserts. So you'll probably also be familiar with this if you've seen my other videos. I just can't do undated inserts. This is not something that I have an ideological opposition to, I hasten to add. So don't think that I am against undated inserts or I think there's anything wrong with them. I'm just too lazy for it. I can't do it. It's just something that I've had to admit to myself that I'm not good at doing. Just the very idea of it makes me tired. And I feel like if I were dating my own inserts, it's just, for one thing, I feel like having a planner is, I mean, one of the reasons that I have planners is because I love them and I like looking at them and, I enjoy it. But another reason is because I want to have an efficient system for storing information and date related information. And so I kind of feel like the planner should do that job for me. I don't feel like I should have to be putting in the dates myself. And this is just, again, this is not like I think there's anything wrong with that. I really admire people who can deal with undated inserts. Kind of like I admire people who can run marathons. That's also something I can't do. So I think that it's laudable if you can do that, but I just can't. So I've kind of had to reconcile myself to that, because there are a lot of really cool inserts that are undated, and I feel like I can't handle it. The only time that I could deal with an undated insert is a case like this. So you may be familiar with this. This is my Fodori. That's like a kind of mock Midori. It looks very similar to the Midori, but it's made out of vegan leather. And I couldn't decide what to do with this. And I was thinking of using it for a food tracker instead of my Happy Planner, but I decided to stay with the Happy Planner. And so James and I found a use for this, which I'm really happy about. So we decided to use this, basically last year, we attempted to introduce this planner that was going to be like a kind of sort of like romantic planner where we would write things that we liked about each other. And we found that we just couldn't keep up with it. Like trying to write things every day on top of all of the other stuff that we were planning, it just didn't work, and we ended up stopping, which is kind of a shame. But I think, like, being realistic, I'm not very good at tracking, and I don't do anything like memory keeping, and we just couldn't do it. I like to write down stuff that is going to happen in the future, and then like once it's happened, I don't care anymore. So we stopped that. But we decided to use this as a kind of like modified, we're calling it, in Hebrew there's in Yiddish, there's this term Sholem Bais, which means kind of like domestic harmony. And there's this concept that like, you should have Sholem Bais, like you should have domestic harmony. So we're going to use this as our domestic harmony planner, which means that if we ever like start to get into an argument, we will go to the planner and write down some nice things about each other. So we're only using this as a kind of like as and when needed, like a sort of argument stopping planner. And I have to say, since we've had this, it's been probably about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe. I think this is the 3rd week. And it's worked really, really well. And we haven't had any arguments since then. So just the thought, like if we started to have an argument, one of us has said like, oh, should we get out the Sholem Bais planner? And then that's like kind of put a stop to the argument, which I think is amazing. And it's great because this way it's not like a pressure. It's not like something that we feel like we must do every day. And because I already had inserts for this, because I was using it for lists that were undated, I had all of these grid inserts and I didn't want to have to like buy new inserts that were dated. And also it's really difficult to find the dated Midori inserts, and I can't print inserts. That's another one of my deal breakers, by the way. I can't print inserts. I will talk more about that, and then that's the next one. But I decided that because I already had these inserts that I would bite the bullet and attempt to make my own calendar. And so I have made this myself and I'm extremely proud of it. And the reason that this works is because I don't have to do it every week. So you can see we've only written like one entry in here. So what I've done is it's a week on one page because that's all we need. And there are 2 booklets, one for me and one for James. And so we've got Monday to Sunday here. And it's really easy to do because it's gridded. So like I don't have to struggle too much with that. And then I'm just leaving the dates blank. And if we come to a day when we need it, I'll write that week at the top of the page. And you can see I wrote the week of the 4th of January to the 10th of January. So that was last week. So I guess this must be the 2nd week. I'm confused. I think this must be the 2nd week. Anyway, we haven't had to write anything in it here. And so hopefully I'll be able to use this for another week. And, like basically the ideal is to write as little as possible in this. And I've written out a few weeks in advance. So this is the only way that I can handle undated inserts. If it's something that I'm only using occasionally and I don't need to keep dating it. With the Happy Planner, if because of my previous deal breaker, the laminated covers, if I have to get the undated inserts, I think what we would do is they come with date stickers, and I think that we would just have a date sticker party and put all the dates on like for the whole 6 months at once, so that in effect it would be like kind of one short session. And because they are stickers, that would make it kind of fun, and then I wouldn't have to worry about dating it again. Hello, Tails. Tails has just come in and is standing behind me on the sofa. So that's deal breaker number 4. Deal breaker number 5 is, as I just mentioned, print yourself inserts. This is another one that falls into the same category of things that I really admire, but that I just can't do myself. So I think that I'm not alone out there in that there is like a group of us, or I don't know, a contingent or something that just can't handle the dated inserts. And there is another group that really likes, print yourself inserts. I really like the idea of it because I can see how it would be great just to be able to find something on Etsy, download it and instantly have it, also like kind of have control over it so that if you make a mistake, you can print out another copy. Like I really get that in theory, but in practice, again, like I feel like I want to buy the planner already ready with the paper and with the ink printed on it, and I want it to, do you know what I mean? I want it to be a finished product, and I just don't want to have to do that myself. And I think part of it goes back to the fact that I like planners that look like books. And if you print something yourself, like to me, it's the opposite of that. It's just, it's like DIY. It feels like paper that I've printed myself. Another thing is that I hate printing, and I just hate dealing with my printer, and I hate everything about it. I hate changing the toner. I know that I would never be able to master the sizing. When people talk about like having to change the margins or, like size it down, my head hurts. And then double-sided, like don't even get me started on double-sided. Like there is no way that I could do double-sided. So, and I think I would end up wasting so much paper that I would just be extremely frustrated with myself and the printer and the entire universe. And I just would rather not go there. So that's the story with DIY inserts. It's like, again, a skill that I admire in those who possess it, but I've just come to accept that for me, it is a deal breaker. The next deal breaker number 6 is, and this is maybe not quite a deal breaker, but I'm including it here anyway. It's more of a preference, months between the weeks. So this is an interesting one because I have talked to fellow planner nerds who have the opposite, like who like to have the months interspersed like this. And I feel like I'm being really mean to this poor happy planner because I keep showing it a lot, and there are going to be more things that I bring out the happy planner for as well. But I have to say, I love the happy planner. The happy planner makes me really happy. It just happens to have all these features that I normally wouldn't go for. So months between the weeks, I mean, like you have your monthly month on 2 pages, and then it goes straight into the weeks. And then you have like your whole month, and then you have, and in weeklies, and then you have your next month on 2 pages, and then you have the weeklies again, etc. The reason that I don't like this setup as much is, for one thing, because I think it has to do with the way that I use the month on 2 pages and the week on 2 pages. And again, that may be influenced by the fact that the first planner that I've ever had that has a monthly layout is the Hobonichi. And so I'm just used to sort of like using that the way that my brain sort of naturally gravitated towards it. It could be that if I'd started out with a planner that had the months interspersed with the weeks, I would be used to that. And this would seem strange to me. But the way that I use the monthly layout is for completely different things, I guess, than the weekly layout. I use it, well, in my work planner, I use it like just as an overview so that I can have an at a glance idea of what appointments I have, and also as a kind of like sort of high level scheduler so that I can see at a glance what I have to get done in the month. Whereas the weekly schedule is more for like my sort of broken down hour by hour appointments and individual small tasks. And so I think of them in completely different compartments. And so it's convenient if I want to do some forward planning, or like if I want to know if I'm free, I'll just go to the monthly section and I have it tabbed. And so it's easy for me to find the right month. And that's like a completely different activity than using the weekly calendars, if that makes sense. Whereas if they're interspersed, it's kind of like you have to look for the right one. And that's why I think generally planners that do it this way have tabs, which is, it's not something I mind. I don't mind the tabs, but I kind of feel like it's cleaner not having to have many tabs, just having to have a tab for your current week or your current month. Whereas in this, I kind of feel like I'm often looking through tabs trying to get to the right one. And I'd rather just be able to flip to the right section at the beginning. With my personal planner, as you'll know if you've already seen the setup for this, I also use the month on 2 pages, this is my Hobonichi weeks, for completely different things than I use the weekly pages for. So I use this mostly for tracking, so like exercise tracking, water intake, expenses, like purchases, things like that. And so again, in my brain, it occupies a completely different category than the weekly pages, and I'd prefer having it all together so that I can check kind of at a glance, like how much did I spend last month on planner supplies, or what kind of exercise did I do last month, and it's right next to this month, so they kind of follow on from each other and they're all in their own section. And then I go to the weeks, and the weeks are used for different things, if that makes sense. So having this kind of layout where it's interspersed, it's not like it's the end of the world, but for me it somehow doesn't work as well. And in fact, in this, we're not really using the monthly layout, so it's actually just like kind of a wasted page. And because they're interspersed, another thing that kind of bothers me when they're interspersed is that because the monthly page has to go somewhere, if the, let's see, December, if the month doesn't end on the last day of the week, like here, the month ends on I think it was like a Monday or a Tuesday. Okay, so no, the month ended on a Friday. So this is your last week of December. It ends on the 27th. And then you're like, where's the rest of my month? And you have to go behind the January tab and go to the first week of January, and then you get the rest of your December. So that's really confusing to me. I would rather have the whole of December in December. And like, if anything, I would rather have a bit of duplication. So that, like, say I would rather have another week here with the end of December in the December colors, and then like maybe have the last 2 days grayed out to show you that, you know, the last 2 days of the week are not December anymore. And then same thing, like have this grayed out in the January tab, but have it start here. I think I would prefer that. And I think that some planners do that. I think maybe Plum Paper Planner, like some planners that have the months and the weeks interspersed. So it's not like it's impossible to do it that way if you have the months between the weeks, but it seems like a quite common way of doing it. And I can understand it because I guess it saves paper, because you don't have that extra week. You have that, the offending week, you only have once. And it's not like I have a problem with it, you know, and lots of people I think like it like this, but for me it's just confusing. And so that's another reason why it's kind of a deal breaker. I'm including it even though I'm putting up with it in this, but if I were using this as a planner as opposed to just a tracker, it would definitely, like, I wouldn't be able to handle it. So that was my next deal breaker. Then deal breaker number 7 is, again, the poor Happy Planner. Like, again, I'm really sorry to be so mean to the Happy Planner because I do love it. But this is by no means something that's limited to the Happy Planner. This is something that I've seen in a lot of planners, and generally I avoid them. The Happy Planner is actually, it's quite to its credit that it has all these things that I usually don't like, and yet I still like it. So something else that bugs me with a lot of planners, and this is kind of more of an ideological issue, is when they're very gender specific. So I feel like most spiral bound planners and quite a lot of ring bound planners are like pitched totally at a female market. And I know that the planner community, I think, is kind of predominantly like female dominant, which is not a bad thing. Like, that's just how it is. I don't know why it's like that. But it just, I think maybe because I'm not at all girly, and so I kind of usually I don't gravitate towards things that are girly. And because I like planning, and like, say if you get a sticker subscription, you're likely to have like lots of hearts and, you know, like kind of cute girly things. And I sort of put up with it, but I've never like been in, like, I hate pink, I don't like hearts, I would never like kind of go for anything like that. So I prefer the planners that are just gender neutral, because I feel like I can't think of any planners that are like sort of designed exclusively for guys, as in even like you know, like Filofax and Hobonichi and Leuchtturm and Moleskine, all these, I feel like these are totally gender neutral, as in they are not expecting the users to be either male or female, and like they work for both, and I like that. I kind of feel uncomfortable with planners that are like this, like, she turned her cants into cans and her dreams into plans. It's a nice sentiment, but like, why couldn't they have said, turn your cants into cans and your dreams into plans? It's like totally designed for a female customer planner, which, like, I think Otte but Otte from the Back of Beyond, that's her name on Instagram, who also has a planner channel, commented that she wondered like how it would be received if you had the opposite, if you had something that had, you know, quotes like this and they were completely designed for a male audience. Like, I think we would not like that. So it just kind of bothers me. And like, again, as I've mentioned before, James really likes the Happy Planner. Like, he thinks it's great. He says that he's found planner peace with the Happy Planner. He said that's the one planner that we cannot switch out. He loves it. And that's why we're going to get the extension pack, because he's just like, I love the Happy Planner. So clearly, like, there are some guys who like it. Maybe, you know, like, maybe they're not a lot, but then part of that is because of the marketing and the way that it's totally like designed for female market. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe you think I'm crazy, but that's just something that it's kind of always bugged me. And it would usually, I think, sort of turn me off of a planner if it like feels like it's totally pitched only towards women. And it's just, I think if it were the other way as well, like I just think, why can't they be for everybody? Anyway, that's another one. I hope you don't think that's completely bizarre and mad, but yeah, that's just something I've sort of wanted to talk about for a while. The next one, number 8, is, again, the poor Happy Planner. This is, again, not just the Happy Planner. It just happens to be that the only planner that does these things or has these elements is the Happy Planner that is in my possession. So this is quite common. Again, I think, not again, I haven't mentioned this before. This is quite common on US planners, North American planners. I've never seen it on a planner designed in Europe or Asia, where you have a Sunday start to the months, but then you have a Monday start for the weeks. And I find that really confusing. And I know that like others have agreed about that. I think that the reason is that the like traditional calendar layout in the US is Sunday first. And because people are used to that, that's how they do it on the planners. Which is funny because I think like here in the UK, the layout for wall calendars is a Monday start. So I don't know how that came about. It's like very interesting sort of historical development of the calendar question. That's quite interesting to me. I wonder why that is. And that makes sense. Actually, this is not true. I do have another planner that does that. I'm sorry, Happy Planner, for maligning you. The top-down planner, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, does actually some of these same things. So, wait. Does it? I thought it did. Maybe it doesn't. Oh, no, I know what it does. It has the month on 2 pages with a Monday start, but it has a year at a glance with a Sunday start, which is even more confusing because you've got one layout here and then another layout for the months and the weeks. But I think that more common is to see this. So like, you know, Erin Condren and Lime Life as well. I've had Lime Life inserts and I really like those inserts. They do this as well. And I just find it confusing because like I would think you would expect your monthly view to have the same format as your weekly view. So that's another one. Then the next one, deal breaker number 9, is I think this is maybe this is another one that's just peculiar to me, and I think that this is another like kind of North American versus I guess rest of world issue here, is if you have an hourly layout that is based on the 12-hour clock. I find that really confusing. So this is the top-down planner, and you can see here it has this hourly layout on the weeks, and it goes from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m., but it's written like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I would prefer it to be, again, like the Hobonichi, with the 24-hour clock, which is like what I'm used to. Every planner that I've had has used the 24-hour clock. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, etc. I prefer that. Somehow, I don't know why, because you say 10 p.m., you don't say like 22, but I just find it really disconcerting seeing these numbers because I associate these with AM. So I would rather that it said, instead of 1, 2, 3, that it said 13, 14, 15. But again, I think that's just like a geographical thing. So I think the Erin Condren hourly layout also has a 12-hour clock, but that's just another thing that I mean, a lot of these deal breakers are kind of hypothetical in a way for me, because I feel like I've got my main planner lineup sorted out, and they've all been vetted so that they don't do these things that I don't like. Except for the Happy Planner. The Happy Planner is the only one that I'm actually using now that has any of these features that I don't like. These other ones I'm not actually using. They're just planners that I've used in the past, or that I've just, bought and then kind of realized that I didn't like them and not use them. Okay, so the final deal breaker, number 10, is again the top-down planner. When you have an hourly layout and it only gives you one line per hour. So this is something that I actually knew before I bought this planner, and I've avoided planners that only have one line per hour for quite a while. I really like it when they're like the Hobonichi or the Moleskine. This is the day per page Moleskine, but the weekly layouts also do this, at least the ones that I've had or seen. They give you 2 lines per hour, so you can schedule things on the half hour as well. And I find that really convenient, because often I have like a meeting that will go for an hour and a half, and I'd like to be able to indicate that, or something that starts on the half hour. So like my Russian class started at 6:30. Well, one of them started at 7, but another one started at 5:30. And so if you only have 1 hour, 1 line per hour, you have no way of indicating that, because you just have this one line, which can be hard to split up. So, or it could be that you have something that only lasts half an hour, and then you have another thing starting directly after it, and there's really no way to indicate that. You'd have to like kind of write in really small writing somehow, manage to fit it on the same line. And I just think, again, like I would like my planner to be arranged so that I don't have to do things like that. So in here, if you have something at 8 and something at 8:30, you can just write in your thing that starts at 8 and then your thing that starts at 8:30, and you're sorted. They don't necessarily label the half hour. I think that the Passion Planner labels the half hour. If I'm not mistaken, it has a half hourly layout and it labels every half hour, which I think is great. But I don't really feel like that's necessary, because if you have your own line and you've got every hour labeled, then it's easy to see what the half hour is. So like the Hobonichi has the grids, which I love, and it's got a line, a gridded line every hour. So you've got your hour, and then you have the next line, and you can easily write in 30 or 15 or something if it starts at an odd time, but you've got your extra space there. So that is something else that I can never have a planner that only has 1 line per hour. I bought this for James because he does not have this as a deal breaker. So that's it. Those are my top 10 deal breakers. I have got some other like kind of likes and dislikes. So like, for example, fonts, there are fonts that I like and fonts that I don't like. So I don't like the fonts that are like kind of too cursive and, sort of very, I can't describe them, like kind of very like flowy and curlicues, unless they're like extremely stylized. I usually like the sort of more like sans serif, kind of like clean, very like sleek type of fonts, but it's not a deal breaker. It could be something that, the whole planner overall might win me over. But like, for example, when I was choosing my Happy Planner, there was one, I think it's the Good Things Are Going to Happen one, that had like really nice watercolors, and I liked some of the designs, but it had this like sort of very like cursive-y font, and I just like that sort of made me not like it. So that's what I mean. Then another thing obviously is paper quality, but I think this is something that like, we all have. Like I would much rather a planner that not necessarily is like extremely thick, but just that has a nice feel to it, and that is sort of like has a nice color. Like I like planners like this, where they're kind of like creamy and off-white and very smooth. Like I love Tomoe River paper, which is actually, this is reasonably white, but it's not like blindingly bright light. And obviously it's very thin, but it's really nice feeling paper and very high quality. And the final thing, which you might already know about, and this is not really a deal breaker, this is just a preference, is that I don't really like it when planners have a lot of information pages at the beginning. So my kind of main like pet peeve is Moleskine, which has all of these pages for things that I never use. And I'm not including this as a deal breaker because I could put up with that. And I know that there are people who use these, so I don't want to, say like they're useless, because there are people who use them. But I just like it when they are like kind of more to the point, like this one, where they just give you your calendar. They give you like another calendar layout. They give you one page of holidays, a project planning page, and then like they start straight into the planner. I like it when they do that. Hobonichi does have some of this like kind of extra information, but it's right at the end. And somehow I feel like that's easier to ignore, because when you go into your planner, like I feel like this is where more of the work goes on rather than at the end. Anyway, so there you have it. Those are my top 10 planner deal breakers. I would be really curious to hear what you think, if you have the same deal breakers or different ones. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye.